our good friend joining us this week. This is Mr. Tom McKee.
Hey.
Yeah. An illustrious career, an illustrious musical career.
Still chipping away at it, but yeah, it's been a minute.
We go way back. Tom was with Brothers Past, the project Let's Danza, currently the band More.
Yep.
Currently, what's your title? Or owner, operator of the School of Rock Downingtown?
Yeah.
What's the title?
I mean, I still like to think of myself as a music director, but
okay.
I pay the bill. I'm the owner of the school, so I pay the bills. And
so we prefer musical director, but there's also that clerical side to it. Maybe not as flashy of a title.
Yeah, I just like a lot of the people that work with me have been people that I started with, or that were students of mine or something. So I never like to think of myself as the owner, but I do own the business, and I'm pretty much responsible for all the day-to-day, all the music decisions, all the general manager decisions.
No, we'd love to cover a lot of stuff tonight, but maybe we start there. Of course, we're going to be promoting the big Ian McGuire benefit that's coming up. We'll talk more about that. But how did you get involved at the School of Rock, and how long has it been now? I mean, time flies.
It's been like 16 years.
I was going to say, has it been 10 years yet? It's been like 16
years.
And why Downingtown? Like, are you up that direction?
Dude, it's a weird relationship I have with the school. But when I was with Brothers Past, we were touring a lot, and I had a job at the newspaper in Westchester. I interned there in college. And basically, I worked like Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday night, and then I would like go play shows with the band Wednesday through Saturday. And I would go on tour, and they would be cool about me like dipping out for like 4 or 5 weeks, and then coming back. I still had a job, And I did a big story on the School of Rock in Downingtown when it first opened, and it ran like on the Sunday paper. Ran in the Sunday paper, front page, pictures. School had just opened, and like I think they like almost double or tripled their enrollment like within a week or two of the article running. So I had a lot of like good favor with the company. And when the band took a break in like 2006, 2007, I needed a job, and I started looking for a teaching gig. And there were a few schools that I could have chose to work for, and most of them wanted me to like cut my hair and shave my beard and all these things. And the School of Rock kind of embraced that about me.
It's part of the gig.
Did the sign say long-haired freaky people need not apply?
No, it didn't. They were so happy that I knew all these Beatles songs that they were just I feel like a piano gig at School of Rock, you get a lot of like musical theater people and a lot of just like not rock and roll people. Rock and roll people want to play, and they go out and they play. And so when you find people that have some of that rock and roll authenticity, you jump on it and you try and hire them because they're good people that bring that credibility and that know-how to the gig. So we're always looking for that there. But I knocked over my Tic Tacs. I'm sorry. I started with like 4 kids, and I was like, one day a week I can do this, And then they asked me to pick up a second day, and I was like, all right, 2 days a week I can do this. And then the music director left, and I applied for that gig and got it. And then I started directing the All-Stars, which is like the nationally touring version that you might see at like World Cafe or the Knitting Factory when it was open, kind of the bigger venues. They would play at Lollapalooza every year. They still do. All of the tours end with a big festival like Lollapalooza. But I started doing that, and they just started like, they would fly me in to do something at Red Rocks with the kids, like when they needed like somebody to just come in and do something in like 2 days. We did something at Times Square, like a big event there. And they gave me a chance to eventually buy the school. It was owned by the company, and I had been there for 7 or 8 years at that point, and they gave me that chance, and we did it. So, I've been doing that for like 10 years as the owner. And that's why my beard is the hair is not so gray.
That's incredible. Like, as far as the kids, do they come in wanting to play the instrument, or do they have any background, or can they come in and say, "Hey, I want to play guitar"? And then are they the beginner?
It varies. I mean, they have programs for all ages, and they definitely will sign. We sign up beginners on all ages and all skill of all ages and all instruments. As the schools get bigger and less in availability, my school's pretty big, so we tend to skew more towards experienced kids at my school. But they're getting ready to open one in media, I think, by the end of the summer, and I think that one will be definitely more all ages, because it'll be just a brand new blank canvas kind of thing. They have programs as young as like 6 years old, something like that. And we go all the way up. We actually have a program for adults too. So like late night, we do like 8 to 10.
That's great. I'm sure it's fulfilling when you have a kid that you came in at an early age and you see them now maybe in their own rock bands.
Yeah.
In high school, post high school.
Yeah, we have some kids actually that I've known since so there's a funny story. The first show that I went to when I first was like checking this out was like January 2007. That's when I started. I saw a Grateful Dead show. And I went with a friend and we were watching the show. And the first, all the bands were great. And then like the third or fourth song, they do Truck In, and it's this little like 8-year-old guitar player. He's like just shreds this cool bluesy solo. And I turned to my friend, I was like, dude, if that's what happens here, like sign me up. Like this kid like is I don't want to call him like a prodigy because he's one of the hardest working kids I've ever met, but incredible guitar player. He's putting out his own music now. He went through Clive Davis's program at NYU, which is like the program that Alicia Keys went through. He's in a band called Del Water Gap right now that's kind of blowing up. They just played at Carnegie Hall with Maggie Rogers.
Shout out Del Water Gap and shout out Maggie Rogers.
He's the lead guitar player. He just played at Lollapalooza, and I just see video of this kid playing in front of like thousands of people, and it's pretty exciting to see. And we have some alumni that are... What's
his name, to give him a shout?
His name is Nick Cianci. He's amazing, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
His whole family's amazing. 3 great kids that went through the program. We have 2 kids that play in the band The Districts. You might have heard of The Districts. They get a lot of love on XPN. Yeah. So they weren't
like
part of the original...
area, right?
Yeah, they weren't part of the original Lidditz set, but they've had some people move on over the years, and 2 of the kids that went to my school are now in that band. So that's really cool for them. There's a Talking Heads cover band called Start Making Sense that's pretty huge on the local East Coast circuit, and a lot of those guys are former Downingtown and School of Rock teachers.
That's the reward. That's the reward. Seeing that, you're doing something, you're making a difference. Like that makes a mark. I'm sure it makes work every day.
Yeah,
feel like work.
The ripple effect of watching it. I mean, in the very early days, the founder of the school said that he was hoping to like help change the course of rock and roll by inspiring young people to like pick up guitars and drums and actually play instruments, and like hope that someday that would be one of the most, enriching rewards for him is watching that happen. And I've been doing it long enough now where I have students that are like married and starting families of their own, but some of them are also out there actually like doing it and performing and like putting in the time and like reaping the rewards,
How much time does that leave you for your own music? Like as we know you from Brothers Past and everything that you've done since.
Yeah.
How much time?
I put it on the back burner for a long time. I didn't do anything when I first like bought the school. That kind of like coincided with right around the time Brothers Past stopped playing shows at all. We were playing just kind of some festivals and weekend stuff as we were asked to, but weren't doing a ton. And I kind of put a lot of my time and my love into doing this. It became a very rewarding and just very wholesome thing to have in your life, Brothers Past is awesome, but like that lifestyle is definitely different than showing up to school and trying to inspire the kids to practice and try to make something meaningful. That's what I'm always trying to pitch them on, is like, it's not just a recital. It's just a chance to like, we're playing a concert and we can turn this into something magical if we really put the time and the love into it,
It's so important these days for people like yourself and like the School of Rock program to like mentor these kids and to get them psyched about it. Because we've talked about this a little bit before, but I feel like we live in a world of like such instant gratification. Phones, internet, boom, boom, boom. Where I know when I started playing, like there wasn't a phone for me to fuck around on. So the guitar was the video game, was the fun thing to mess with constantly. And I would imagine that there's less patience with kids these days in a general context to just kind of sit in their room and bang away on a guitar or sound bad on a piano for months and months and months before it starts to click. So when someone's able to provide a tangible experience, and a tangible payoff, I think that's valuable.
And I think that there's still no way around that. Like the kids that do get it and do move on, they still have to put that time in. But I just think like it's not every kid putting that time in anymore. So a lot of, with instant gratification, people will quit right away. But the ones that are real and make it, there's no getting around it. If you're going to be taken seriously, you got to put in those hours.
Yeah.
You know?
I think a lot of our kids are like shy and introverted on a lot of levels, and some of them are naturally talented and can just pick things up and do it, and then they're in the environment and it just goes from there. But there's also a lot of kids that don't fit in really anywhere else, and they find some validation and some gratification through an instrument, and in a weird way, I preach it. Like it becomes like a social currency, like if you want to be cool, like get good at this, like watch how fast it happens. Like there's just something about a good guitar player that people are like, I want to like talk to that guy. Like, it overcomes a lot of whatever you're feeling about yourself and builds a level of confidence that you wouldn't have had otherwise, and that's something that's like a byproduct of what we do. We throw really cool rock concerts and we play music that most of their parents grew up listening to, and so when they get to watch their kid do it, it's like a very special connection.
And I've seen videos of stuff that you've done, and the cool part, and another thing that makes kids kind of quit an instrument at an early age, is because you're learning to Mary Had a Little Lamb and stuff. But something like what you're doing, you're going in there and playing the band. You're going in, Fleetwood Mac presents this night. You're not playing like the standards that turn some kids off because their friends are saying it's not exciting, and their friends are like, don't think it's cool. But you're going in there and hitting a chord from the Who. You're like, whoa, that wakes everybody up. The captain of the football team, or the kid in the back of the class.
Yeah, and we're helping create more cultured human beings in the process, because like all these kids are, by the time they graduate, have listened to everything from like Led Zeppelin and Radiohead, but they've also done like reggae and Motown, and maybe they did like Rocky Horror Picture Show or Jesus Christ Superstar, or just things that have like a theatricality to them. And they go to college and they're going to figure out real quick that like not everybody knows who King Crimson is. Like, it's going to be a different thing for them. But like, I feel like the world needs more of that culture that we're helping create, and less of the instant gratification, YouTube, Instagram culture that is like so prevalent.
How much of a leg up do you think you have coming from your rock and roll, upbringing and your credentials, to where like a music teacher that came through like a music college and just kind of taught them like la 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 la, like where you were rocking festivals and sold out rooms to rock concerts? Like I'm sure you can teach certain things that they can't.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I kind of check a little bit of both boxes. Like I definitely feel like I can walk the walk and talk the talk with the theory. I feel like I'm a pretty good academic musician, but I've had students that have gone to Berklee College of Music and come back and work at my school, and they know more about music than I do. Like they know things about just, maybe like advanced ending cadences, or just things that are beyond my scope as a rock musician. Right. Maybe it's like a classical thing or a choral thing or whatever it is. And, I feel like I'm right in my wheelhouse with what I do. I feel like what I do has helped me get better at being in my wheelhouse. I mean, there's a lot of music that I've discovered and learned and processed that I hadn't listened to
prior,
and to do deep dives on artists like Zappa and Yes, and some of the other things that I wasn't super into in high school or college, has made me a better and more cultured musician.
But an example of what I'm thinking, and like, you can know the theory and learn music, but like if you go up on stage and you have like a buttoned up golf shirt or something, like you can't teach, dressing a certain way and fashion, and maybe a bandana hanging out or a chain. There's certain things that an attitude
doesn't come out of
that you can teach, that they learn your school.
Yeah.
That kind of sets them up for that, because that's something I know that we had to come up on our own, what to kind of, not always getting it right, but when you see it, you know it. You kind of see
You came in here with the rock and roll attitude just pouring out of you. You smacked our buddy HT across the face.
Apparently they know each other.
We weren't expecting that.
They're high school buddies.
They're like, this
Bonner
guy's
High.
legit.
That's not what happened.
Bonner High 94.
Wow, this guy's seen some things.
We talk about that stuff though, I tell them not to wear shorts on stage.
It's important.
I tell them not to wear flip-flops,
exactly.
I tell them, like, if they're standing on stage and the keyboard player is taking a solo and they're standing in front of the keyboard player, to get the hell out of the way,
things that
stagecraft, stage
so
dress,
important. So
banter,
important.
like how to talk to an audience, like those aren't things that we talk about in like your first year of lessons necessarily, but like by the time they're graduating high school and they're doing things like these all-star tours, and maybe, the school has a house band that I direct, like, excuse me, it's kind of the local version of the All-Stars, where I take them to like when a carnival asks us to play, or there's an outdoor street fair or something and they're looking for entertainment. That's who I take. And so those kids are getting like more nuance and more like of the polishing that goes into like really making you a refined, somewhat professional musician, but I also encourage them to figure it out themselves, like I don't teach them how to move on stage. Like I don't teach them I don't tell them what to wear. Like I encourage them all to like there's 18 of us or 20 of us, like everybody imagine us in a picture and we're all going to be like a different character. Like, figure out what that's going to be and then do that.
That
like,
makes sense.
It can be extreme. You can be the kid like, I don't know, in the Indian headdress or something like that. Or you could be the person who just like always has a handkerchief out of their pocket, like whatever it is, like just find the thing.
And you're right. It's an attitude. It's not necessarily saying you need to wear this. It's like once you find that attitude, then you kind of have that conversation. Maybe, there's the handkerchief's going to be my thing. Yeah. And that's going to make me.
I love the Indian headrass idea, by the way.
Dude, we've done it before and I've got emails about it. It's not culturally, in these modern times, but we were doing YMCA, and the kid was like, come on. We had all the characters, so to not do it,
sometimes you got to just bite it.
Would have been an injustice.
Because live to fight another day.
It's not. It's definitely not a one size fits all type thing. Like generally, yes, no shorts, no flip flops. I've heard that a lot of times. Generally, that's the best move. If you're playing at the beach, sometimes it's not. Like Jimmy Buffett, for example. Like you typically wouldn't wear.
Yeah, there are people who
but what's important? It's not a one size fits all. But I think it's important that you know who you are.
Right.
And I think that resonates.
I encourage them to think of it as like, you're doing a performance. It shouldn't feel the same as everything else that you do. There should be, you should change the way that you dress. You should do some mental preparation before you get on the stage, and you should get up there and play your songs with intention and try to make a magical moment happen for everybody in the audience.
Well put. Yeah.
That's what we aspire for. And like when we do that, like the shows are these amazing things where even if you don't know the kids, just seeing these songs performed with this enthusiasm, they can make Bon Jovi sound like the best song ever written, or Journey or whatever. And when it's like not done well, it's like, it's kids in shorts and flip flops and just,
they're
staring at their fretboard, half asleep.
Right.
Afraid to kind of let loose, afraid to radiate anything.
Right. It's creating a nice place for them to kind of grow into their own.
And that's what live performance should be. It should, at least the intention should be that there should be a moment happening. Because if it's just about listening to music, you don't have to leave your house to do that. But if you're going to a live performance, you're chasing that thing. So it's School of Rock in Downingtown. So where is Acorn Lane, right? Is Victory Brewing still there?
Right in the same area as Victory Brewing. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So, we do a lot of after parties at the Victory, sometimes pre-parties.
Mostly after school hours, like for people kind of looking to get their kids involved?
3 to 8, 3 to 8:30, Sunday through Thursday. And then we do a lot of concerts and recitals on the weekends. So we're still kind of there a lot. We have summer camps coming up just about every week this summer, doing things like classic rock and pop punk and Green Day and best of the 90s.
These are some of the upcoming shows that you have
coming up. These are upcoming
up?
Summer camps that we're running. So we do like 5-day camps where the kids come in, they get 3 or 4 songs to learn on Monday. We have teachers work with them throughout the week. it's very like, just intense, immersive for 5 days. And then we end the last day of camp with like a little concert, like 45 minutes to an hour of music.
Nice.
A little bit of good, a little bit of bad, a little bit of ugly, but always special and always.
Yeah.
They named their bands. Last year we had or maybe it was 2 years ago, we had a band. We were doing the Green Day camp, and the name of the band was the Green Day Packers, which I thought was
That's a great name.
I thought it was like, dude, like 9 and 10-year-old kids sometimes come up with the coolest stuff. Like it's just
that's beautiful.
How has nobody else ever thought?
Yeah, it is incredible. So let's go back a little bit. I mean, of course, we're excited about present day, but definitely want to kind of go back a ways. Mike and I have known you for a long time in different contexts, and I think I want to talk about Brothers Past for a minute. The first time I heard you, first time I heard you play, first time I was introduced to Brothers Past, first time I was introduced to that genre of livetronica, I believe it was called, or among other things, late 90s, early 2000s, was the Digital Freak Show at Studio Indre Studios. Yeah. We were out, and it was back in the day where we'd be driving around all night. Like we'd probably end up at Drexel Line, billiards, really no destination. And someone goes, "Yo, I was talking to Joe McKee, shout out Husk." And his brother and his band is doing something down in the city. Do you want to come check it out? And we're like, we're doing nothing else. Let's go. And we went down, and I had been familiar with Grateful Dead, Allman Brothers, familiar with the template of like jam rock, kind of like people spinning around, the major key, Grateful Dead, Sunny Day, sundress type shit. And this was not that. And I liked that stuff. This was not that. You guys had a sound that was mind-blowing. It was like it was dark. There were definite hip-hop vibes, drum and bass vibes, but also like melodic songwriting with different movements. The songwriting was interesting, and the improvisations were not the twirl around type things. Some maybe touched on that. But I mean, I remember, and shout out Holly Smoker and the rest of the gang, but I remember looking over and I see Holly, and there was another like smaller girl, and they're just dancing. It was almost like B-girl type stuff, like movements and whatnot, and it was a completely new world for me.
It was like electronica meets jam, but like you said, and it's really important that you said that there was that hip-hop like feel to it. So when they would kind of get into their like you guys would segue into something, and then when you would find it like that beat, and then it kind of feel was very like Wu-Tang-ish almost, like it meets that jam kind of thing, which was an interesting sound. I'd never heard it.
Like I love the song Victory, the Biggie song, or Puff, whatever. You know what I'm talking about.
With the sample of the Rocky.
With the sample of the Rocky, and that tension, that like there's that feel. And I'm not saying you guys sounded like that, but the stuff you were doing encapsulated that kind of tension and
then a release,
feel.
Tension release.
Yeah, like you were about, like you felt like I felt like I could walk down to the boxing ring or the octagon listening to some of this music. For our Beat Posse friends that are tuning in, maybe to Hoagie Time for the first time to listen to you talk a little bit, would you mind maybe talking about the beginnings of Brothers Past and how that sound came about, how you guys were able to find that sound?
Yeah. We had been jamming, obviously. I mean, I had always been interested in jamming and improvising. I had played in a few bands before I started playing with Tom Hamilton, and was always very much like sort of an analog guy. Like I had bought like a Hammond Portabee and a Leslie speaker, and I had like a Fender Rhodes, and was just very sort of almost like right out of high school was like starting to buy gear that, I would be using to this day. And we were in a band like that together for a while, and we're doing stuff like that. And you have to remember the time. It was probably 98, 99, into 2000 that this transition was happening. And it wasn't just happening with us, it was happening with a lot of bands. I mean, Fish sort of went into this very sort of dark funk kind of thing around 97 and was like exploring more loop-based things. And, electronic music in general was starting to become more popular. I remember DJ Shadow had a record that, like, when we first heard it, it kind of like flipped our lid. And
is that Introducing, or is that another one?
Yeah. I think it was that one. Yeah, Introducing.
Nice.
But like, Kid A came out like a few years later, and just like music in general was moving towards a more human expression of electronic music. I feel like taking those colors and painting with them in different ways.
Okay.
The jam scene had bands doing it on some levels. I mean, we had played some shows with Sound Tribe Sector 9 and like, did some stuff with the Disco Biscuits, and saw sort of, Lake Trout was another one.
Love Lake Trout.
Saw all these bands figuring out ways to do it, and Rick was like super heavy into drum and bass music, was really interested in like learning to play drums like Square Pusher and things
Rick
like
Lowenberg.
that. Rick Lowenberg, yeah. And Clay was like very much into like hip hop and like other kinds of electronic music than we were necessarily listening to in Philly. He was down in Florida and was like just exposed.
Was he the LTJ Bookham? Was he the one that brought that name around?
Rick, I think, and both of him, the two of those guys brought a lot of that stuff to us. And then a lot of fans started handing us stuff, and it just became very interesting to like listen to. Tom is like a super creative musician and was, a really good drummer who also played guitar and, also was keen on playing some drums. So we were, we found, we were doing a residency at Rex's in Westchester, and we just had a place where we could just try different things. And that became kind of the lab for doing stuff. We also had the time to play 3-4 days a week back then.
You guys were all living together, at least for a time.
Together for sure.
Shout out Mr. O.
Yeah, and we were putting time in to just like, to get better at our craft. I mean, Tom and I were writing a lot of songs that, didn't necessarily need to be rock songs, and Rick's whole drumming style was sort of this fluttery electronic sound that, was not human at sometimes,
like, robotic, precision, robotic, power, stamina.
Very very distinct.
Super hi-hat. Oh,
very hi-hat.
I love that.
Clay
shit.
was, had a really distinct deep bass tone that I think was different from everybody
shout out
else.
Clay Parnell, shout out Rick, shout out
talking about the hip-hop thing, like, drum and bass and hip-hop are basically the same beats, just like sped up and cut in half, So if you're playing something real fast and then you drop it back down to halftime, which you would do to just create tension and release, something new.
Let the crowd take a breather.
So the natural thing to do there is to just cut it in half, and that gives it more of a hip hop groove. And Clay had was super into like Outkast and stuff like that. Turned me on to a lot of stuff like that. So I think it just became, and it just felt like we were. It just felt like it was a new territory to explore sonically, as much as I love those older vintage sounds, it's harder to innovate when you're painting with the same colors, like a lot of what would naturally be thought of to be done with those instruments has been done at this point, and it really takes the occasional like weird freakish savant to come through and be like, oh, I'm going to do this thing in a new way,
right.
So it just became, it was just interesting, and it just kind of like suited the talents of those four guys. I think Tom, for a long time, as great of a guitar player as he was kind of like a self-loathing guitarist that really just wanted to like play drums and produce and like, not necessarily have to like play a guitar solo all the time, and I think he found a lot of
I remember early on
innovating like that.
It was he was almost anti-guitar solo, and I remember reading several interviews where it was like, we're not trying to be the keyboard solo, guitar solo band. What we're trying to do is like play as a group, play as a unit. And there would be those solos and there would be those parts in songs, but it was all about the group improvisation.
It's interesting you said that, because
if I'm right.
It's interesting you said that, because the dynamic between you and Tom Hamilton, it's the way that you guys would improvise, you weren't doing it in a solo-y way, and it was more done as kind of like a band. Explain that, like the process, because I'd watch you and Tom kind of go into something, and it'd be different from the way you did it before at a show before, and you gave each other space, but it was never like, all right, you go solo for this, and then it's his solo time. You guys were creating something on the fly. How do you kind of describe that process? Like, how do you know where someone's going and when you kick in? I mean, it's total exploration.
Yeah, it is. And it's a conversation, and it's a listening thing, and it's about leaving space for the other person and being willing to, like, the stop, drop, and roll thing that, like, gets put in your brain when you're a kid. Like, if you're ever, like, on fire, you just, like, I feel like jamming with people is a lot like that. Like, you have to be willing to just let yourself be pulled or dragged or, knocked down or moved forward or whatever it is. Like, and your playing has to be just interwoven in a way where everybody in the band is sort of on their own plane and doing their own thing that kind of interlocks together. And sometimes it's complementary, sometimes it breaks apart. But it never, it should never become too stagnant, and it should never move too far from what you were doing too quickly. Like if a color were changing from blue to green, like how long does it take for that shift to happen? It could be just two squares, blue and green, or it could be this long, beautiful blend where all of a sudden you're like, oh, the thing I'm looking at now is a different color. I didn't even notice.
And is that improvised on the spot, or is that something you kind of talk about? Because I notice sometimes maybe Hamilton would be like kind of ripping away, and you'd kind of be starting the texture of the next idea, and then it's as he's winding that down, you've already started something that's related to the same thing before, but it's kind of starts the next mood. Yeah. Do you kind of just trade that off? Is it him? Is it supposed to be him, or is it something that just in the moment you guys kind of feel?
I think it's something that in the moment that we feel, but that we're both good at creating it. We're both, I think, good listeners and
listening
good
has to
supporters. Be, like I learned how to play keyboards by supporting that guy. Like I learned a lot about what makes my instrument cool by trying to have conversations with him every night. And it just turns into like a give and take kind of thing. Like I'm rarely the guy that's like driving the exclamation point on the sentence, because he's such a great exclamation point, so it just, he does that really well, like right. I like to think that if you think about something like from 1 to 10, like I think I'm really good in the like 3 to 7 range. Like I like to create all kinds of new and areas in that space where it's like, whoa, what's going on here? This is a whole new thing.
And the way I describe it from having seen you guys, like you kind of create the colors when he's doing that exclamation point. Maybe that's what you mean by the 3 to 7. Like you make the green turns into the blue, and then you're in blue, and then you were very good at shaping the idea to come out of an that was very cool to see and tough to understand and articulate. But I mean, it was second nature to you guys, which was like the specialness of what you had.
Yeah. I mean, as a listener, what I think makes that stuff great, regardless of who I'm listening to, is the patience and just the lack of ego. I think you have to work together, and it can't be somebody's pushing the envelope. You have to be listening. You have to be sympathetic. And you said, how fast does that color change? So I would imagine the right amount of patience is something that's developed over time.
Yeah.
And how do you, is it, I'm sure the audience doesn't, see it, but how often do you get it right? It's like some shows you got it right to the point, and then there's some like, we maybe missed that one.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure internally as a band.
There's versions of songs that are, particularly standout versions of songs that people loved, and just times where we definitely nailed it, the trick is like trying to keep it fresh and keep it interesting, and not like, oh, this worked that time, so let's just do that, like,
which most
because the spontaneity of it is still the thing that I think most of us are looking for, and still why we do this. I mean, there's a lot of bad jam bands out there. I say that with love, but like, it's really easy for 4 guys to just jump up on stage and like, bang out some 2 chords and a couple scales and like
you solo away, and then you let you solo away.
Agreed.
It never meets that.
And there's
like,
nothing
the
wrong
band
with that.
improv.
Like, it's fun to do. Like, more people should do. The world would be a better place if more people played pentatonic jam grooves and like just put those vibrations out into the world. But like, it still needs to be special, I think, for it to connect with people, you know. There needs to be new voices in the conversation. There needs to be new conversations in general. There needs to be new ways and new sounds of just, you know, we're just combining music and combining sounds. There's infinite ways to do it, and there's infinite ways to improvise, and it doesn't always have to be, you know, the way that the people who came before us did it, you know. So that, I think, is like the interesting thing about doing it, you know, trying to come up with a new palette that's just like, oh, this is cool. They're making this up as that it goes along. I feel something when I listen to it. Like, that's.
Well, you guys achieved that. You nailed your goal. That's when does that Brothers Pay that wraps up around? I mean, you guys got it back together, but
I think our last show was in 2014.
Okay,
was that the Silk City?
Well, no. So the Silk City thing was a Let's Danza thing,
right?
We did a 4-month residency where we played like one Tuesday night a month, the first Tuesday of the month or something like that. And we did a different drummer every month. And for the last week, we had Rick Lowenberg. The last month, we had Rick Lowenberg play drums.
So just for some more context, right? So 06, 07, Brothers passed, go separate ways, hiatus, however you'd like to say that. And then everyone's still staying active. Some things branched off. And I know Clay was doing stuff with Johnny Rab.
Yeah.
Is it Rab or Rob?
Johnny Rob.
Johnny Rob. I'm thinking Broccoli
Rab. It might be Rab.
I'm thinking.
You never met a Jewish person, so you don't know how to say.
I get easily confused.
I don't know. He could be Irish.
No, I know plenty, Mike. But Johnny Rab, the world's fastest drummer, I think he was called that. He's now Collective Souls drummer.
Oh, really?
Soul.
Yeah, so he's capable of doing like Guinness Book of World Record shit,
and also
he's just playing like Shine now,
like Seattle.
Not
pop.
just playing Shine, not like I could do it, but great dude. I met him a couple times.
Guy.
Super nice guy.
He's like a great drummer, and he's like the best guy.
So Clay Parnell was doing Biodiesel with Johnny for a bit, and that was drum and bass duo, and then they would have a different drummer or keyboardist. No, they would have a different keyboardist.
Yeah, they were a duo that just had different special guests.
Hell yeah! So Clay was always a real tight friend of yours.
Yes,
and still is. And then Let's Danza with Ian McGuire. We could talk a bit about that.
Yeah.
So when did that start?
Probably. I think we probably started talking about it in like 2014 or 15. It was later. I think it was probably like 2017. I think we did a Halloween show at Silk City. And, you know, my friend Justin Berger was a promoter in Philadelphia. He just moved to Baltimore. Shout out to Justin, who will probably never see this.
Shout out Justin. Come on, man. I'm sure he's a fan.
Justin, call me. Yeah.
He would put together these like little mini super groups of like Philly jam band people, and then just give it a weird name. And we went through a bunch of different names.
Speaking of great names, Let's Danza, Green Bay Packers. That's up there, man.
Clay and I have this weird like 80s television show and movie synergy where we just talk to each other using lines from episodes of shows. Whatever it is, And
to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, they were always just like, you know, Tony Danza jokes and whatever. So we Justin had just put together this thing called Let's Dance, and it was like a tribute to David Bowie. I think maybe it was a year or so ago. And I just thought that was like a cool name for it because we were going to just be playing improvised electronic music, and I just wanted like people to know what we were doing. But we couldn't use that name, so it was Let's Danza. Anyway, we were doing some shows in Philly. We did a residency. The fourth show turned into a Brothers Past reunion unofficially. We had a different drummer for each show in the residency, and Rick played with us the last night, and we got Tom to come by for the second set, and he played guitar for the whole set. And just kind of like off the cuff. I mean, we didn't rehearse. We didn't talk about anything. We just called out some songs and went and played it. And it went pretty well, man. There were a bunch of people like, live streaming it. And I guess somehow people started putting 2 and 2 together with Rick on the show. They thought, there were rumors that Tom might be there. And like legit, like Tom and I confirmed that he was coming the day of the show. Like we had talked about it a couple times, but like it was definitely not confirmed. I didn't say anything to anybody, but there were like people that flew in from like Texas and Colorado. Like,
That's
just on the off chance that it might happen. Yeah, it was crazy. And we just like crushed a little like sold out Tuesday night at the Silk City.
It was a Tuesday. I took off Barnaby's Havertown that night. Yeah, Husk told me about it.
Yeah.
Maybe it was that day. I don't know. I was there for it. Dude, it was so electric.
It was magic.
So the Let's Danza lineup.
That was the birth of it.
The Let's Danza lineup was 2 keyboardists.
Yeah.
2 keys.
Yeah.
Bassist.
Yeah.
And a revolving door of drummers, but it was you and Clay Parnell.
It was a tricky band to rehearse.
And Ian McGuire,
yes.
the late great Ian McGuire, rest in peace. We have a benefit coming up. So I was introduced to Ian through this band. I didn't know about him. Can you just tell us a little bit about Ian? We'll talk about this upcoming show.
Super talented guy. Clay had done a bunch of work with Ian and various little projects like the one I just described, this little Halloween band that we decided to keep as a band. And I certainly knew him. I had done some stuff like there was a jam at the M Room, which is no longer there. It's a different place, but it's on, Gerard Ave, Frankfurt, around there. And so I like knew him and I knew the MJ project and, just like really, really prodigious jazz piano player who started to delve into synths and more, electronic music and that sort of thing. And Clay was in Particle at the time. And, we were talking about trying to put together something that felt like it was a new thing and wouldn't just be, drums, bass, guitar, and keys, you know? So we were just kicking around the idea of having like a second keyboard player or a second drummer or whatever. We never settled on a first drummer, so the second drummer thing never happened. But we tried to do this concept at this Halloween thing, and it worked really well, like having the 2 keyboards, because we were doing a lot of 80s songs and things like that, and a lot of that is just, so keyboard intensive. So we started we had never really played outside of that, so we started working on just trying to hone our, kind of what I was talking about with Tom, just the way that you listen to each other and support each other and leave space for each other and, are there to cover for each other and that sort of thing. And it started to click and we started to work on some, ideas together and, we played some shows in New York and up in Boston and did a few things here or there. Never really steamrolled the way that we wanted it to, but, it was still fun to do for a while. We played our last show at a festival at the Catskill Jubilee, which is happening again this August. Without Let's Danza, but that was our last show. And, unfortunately, Ian passed away last year, and it's been, just a real, it's hard. It's hard to lose friends like that. It's hard to lose people that you play music with. Those people are brothers to me, and, I took it, pretty hard. And I think a lot of us are still feeling his loss. And he made a record with our friend Scotty Zwang, who's an amazing drummer. They were called the McGuire Zwang Duo, and they just got it pressed onto vinyl, and they're releasing that record later this month. We're doing a release party on June 25th at the Ardmore Music Hall. It's going to be a house band performing a bunch of the songs on this record, and then a bunch of special guests. Tom and Clay will both be there, and some other people that are pretty big names in the local Philly music scene. Eli from Dopapod, I think, is going to be there.
Shout out to Eli from Dopapod.
Yeah, and it's just going to be, we did a thing last year for him. It was a really powerful night. A bunch of his friends got together. Pretty much every project band that he played with got together. We did a big tribute on Memorial Day weekend, and that was, a real cathartic night for a lot of us. And, this will be just about a year afterwards, a year and a month. But it's, I've heard the record. It's really interesting music. There's a lot of jazz sensibilities, but a lot of electronic production, and it really showcases both of them. It's two people playing. It's pretty cool. And I'm like really honored to just be a part of it, and going to try and just pay tribute to his memory in the best way that I can.
Well, I never got to meet him, but you can tell by the legacies left, and the vibe, how great of a guy he must have been. When that show was announced, I think the article that I read had a link to a live performance of them at the Boom Boom Room. Maybe I think maybe Danny Meyer was on guitar near Krasno Band and Soul
Great
Kitchen.
little spot, Boom Boom Room.
Yeah.
Fishtown.
But it was a live show, and I believe it was McGuire Zwang Duo, right? If I'm, and it was great, dude. It was great. I don't believe vocals. I don't think vocals, but some great original stuff. And the track listing, the last song they ended with, I forget the name, but in parentheses said McGuire is most of the set did. But and Ian could write. I mean, what a talented guy, and Scotty sounded great.
He went to Berkeley. He was just monster chops, like just beyond. He had a gear that I couldn't touch, which was it was one of the reasons I liked playing with him, because I've always fancied myself as like the gritty, like in the corner guy, like doing the dirty work kind of
from where you grew up.
Yeah,
we all love to see ourselves that way.
But I always
it's in your DNA.
I always looked for people that have that spark and that gear beyond what I'm able to do, because I feel like I can help support that in a way that's doesn't have ego. It's not like I need to be in front. It's more about what can we do
together.
So with Ian, we had a lot of those similar moments where it was just like I would have friends be like, what is he playing? I have no idea, man. It's just,
was Ian a Philadelphia guy?
He was, his dad is a Philly guy. His grandfather, I think, was Mac McGuire, like a 50s radio host, and his dad is just like the sweetest guy, like the kindest, like, just.
What time doors open? June 25th?
I think it's probably like 7.
Okay.
Yeah, if I had to guess. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure, but on Sunday night, I think it would probably be like an earlier show, so... I'm going to say 7 and just check it out on Ardmore Music Hall.
We'll link it up.
We'll link to that. So it's Ian McGuire, no tribute to me, spelled differently. So also while we have here, let's also talk about another current project you've got going. Of course, we're going to link to the Ian show, whatever. This band More that you're in now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. It's almost a reincarnation of the original Brothers band. You want to talk about that, how that came about? You guys just had a really high profile show. You've only done a few live shows.
Yeah,
School Rock, Downingtown, and Mexico, opening up for Ted and Company and Goose. And
we try to level up with every show, and we're trying to
we're 100 level up.
We're waiting for something better to come along.
Red Lantern
might be a while. Let's talk about that. How'd this project come about?
So this was initially the band I joined out of college. All right, so this is like, I hate to say Brothers Pass 1.0, but like, I met Tom Hamilton was they played a show at my spring fling. The band was called Brothers Pass, and it was Tom and his brother, and
it's Jim Hamilton. Shout out Jim Hamilton. You're catching on.
High school spring.
This is at Cabrini College. I'm like graduating in like 2 weeks. I have a job lined up at the Daily Local News in Westchester. I'm going to be like a newspaper columnist, and this is like going to be my life. And I was editing an article in the newspaper, and it was something about there being a jam band at the Spring Fling, heavily influenced by Phish and the Grateful Dead. So I like the year before was like my band and Mr. Green Jeans, right? So it's like
Brian O'Boyle, one of the best.
Yeah, but it was like cover like a cover band headliner. So the fact that there was like a jam, I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm gonna go see it. So I went to see it. I was blown away. They played the end of Tunnel Vision, and I was like, I got whatever. Mm-hmm. So that night I end up at the Balagomingo in West Conshohocken. It's a speakeasy with a Hammond C3 organ, and every Friday and Saturday night they do live jazz, and it's literally like a basement bar in West Conshohocken, but there's a B3. The guy who played it claimed to be Jimmy Smith's half brother. His name was Eddie Gaines, and there was a drummer. He would play the bass with his left hand, and I just went like every every chance I got, it was like an education watching this guy play and talking to playoffs, Lindros. He literally, I call him from the newsroom at Cabrini College because I live with my parents still. I no cell phones or anything. And he's like, hey, who's this? I'm like, hey, it's Tom, blah, 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 blah. He's like, hey, Flyers are on. I'll have to call you. I'm like, people still watch the Flyers? Like, but it's like Lindros. So I get it, yeah.
Different era.
So he calls me back after the game in the newsroom. I'm still there. And we set up a jam. And we start jamming. And I joined that band. And there's 5 of us. Me, Tom, Jim Hamilton, Joe D'Amico on the bass. I don't think I said his name.
Shout out Joe D'Amico, Smokey Joe.
And Nick Desiderio was our drummer at the time. We played for a couple of years and things kind of, fizzled out. And a couple of the guys decided to like move on with the next phase of their life. Tom and I continued to create. We met Clay and Rick. We kept the name Brothers Past, and then, started to really tour. We had a little bit of a regional following in the tri-state area, we would say. We had done some like festivals and things, but the band really started to like hustle and start to tour and play on the East Coast and Southeast and whatever when Clay and Rick joined the band. But during COVID, we reconnected this version of the band. Tom was looking to create like content, like streaming content. I think he was just trying to find things to do, and he had a studio that he hadn't used. And Nick, our drummer, had sent him a box of tapes of old songs that, like, honestly, neither one of us had even thought about in 20 years. When we put the band together with Clay and Rick, we put a lot of stuff to the side and said, this is not really like what this band is going to be. It doesn't necessarily play to the strengths of the 4 of us. And we just kind of put them away. Thought maybe we get back to them someday. And we just started writing other songs and just like never did. But they were all still really cool songs and good songs. So we, started working on doing a stream. Myself and Tom and Jim started working, and then we got Scotty in the mix, and we were going to do it as a 4-piece with Jimmy on bass, but like some things were just like missing, So reached out to Joe, and Joe was interested. This was like height of the lockdown, nobody was like going anywhere. So we started kind of like relearning and rehearsing all these songs that we hadn't played in 20 years.
Joe had started down somewhat of a bluegrass at one point. Mason Porter.
Yeah.
At some point, I ran into Tom at the Tom Hamilton at the Blinkin' Lincoln in like Roxborough or something randomly, like 15 years ago or whatever. I remember Joe was doing that, so it was cool to see him back.
I mean, Joe is like a very organic human being. He's very much into like the stringed instruments and just. He's an old soul when it comes to his songwriting, and I think that was like a natural progression for him. I don't think he. I think like there was definitely an element of that sort of thing happening where that band was starting to experiment with some of these electronic sounds, and I don't think everybody liked it. So it just felt like a natural time to part ways when we did. But coming back to it, especially, I'm definitely a little bit older. I'm definitely not. I feel like it's been cool to kind of go back and re-embrace some of the things that I always loved as a kid. I have a Hammond B3 organ now, which is like the real version of the portable thing that I bought when I was 18. I still have that Porta-B.
Which is B3. Yeah. Sick.
Still, the Porta-B is still a real, like a real Hammond organ, but it breaks into 2 pieces and it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but to have the real thing and to use that with more and, to use a Wurlitzer electric piano and just, I'm back to painting with a different set of colors, and it feels new again on some levels. And it's interesting because I like go back and listen to the stuff we were doing then, and I wonder like, what would have happened if we had never shifted? Would it have continued to grow? Would it have gotten stale? I don't know. I just know that doing this now feels pretty right. And I'm still doing, I'm dabbling with a few other projects where I am exploring more like electronic music. You mentioned the Boom Room. I've been jamming with some guys there.
You still got to go downstairs there?
Yeah. But
Gary Dan's still there?
Yeah, Gary's been playing drums and
great.
doing like a little Afrobeat kind of thing with him and a couple guys in Fishtown. And I have some other friends from college that I've been playing with. We call that group Happen. And we're kind of like prepping a bunch of music that we're going to record at some point. So I've definitely been busy like on the creative front. I've been playing a lot of music. I get up every day. I do hot yoga. I go out to School of Rock for X amount of time. Sure. And then the rest of my time, I'm trying to be creative and trying to play.
And I asked you this before, but you're a pizza, you're aficionado.
I love pizza.
Yeah. So what are you finding? Like, what's your favorite? I know that's, you were interested. I love pizza myself. So I respect another pizza guy.
So I'm 3 weeks away from 1 year of no pizza.
Whoa. What, dude?
I know, right?
I knew you had something in the bag when you're like, we'll talk about this later.
I know. I've been in this phase of my life where I've been instilling like discipline in different ways. And I haven't had a drink in 4 years. I haven't had McDonald's or any fast food in like 6 years.
You look great. I mean, it's working.
Haven't had a piece of candy. And I did this thing years ago called Extreme Lent, where every day I gave up something new and I just kept it. So I started with soda. And then the next day I did candy and soda, and then like soda, candy, fat. And I got to like day 22 and it was like there was nothing left.
He was eating bread and water. It's all that's left.
I got to pick up some bad habits so I can give something up.
Will you go back to pizza? Or
yeah, I'm actually I'm still in the game. I'm just not eating it. Like I'm like,
because I respected like your feedback and like kind of you give a review.
Yeah,
and
following accounts. There's some. I'm thinking about
you're prospecting.
I'm thinking about doing a road game up to North Jersey or Brooklyn and like busting out of the slump with something new,
something good.
You know. There's a couple spots in like Nutley, New Jersey that look like pretty interesting. There's a spot in the
not just going into New Haven, Connecticut.
I've had New Haven. I've had Frank Pepe.
New Haven's the spot,
I've had the Frank Pepe.
Yeah. I've never had Sally's, and I've never had a pizza, but I've had Frank Pepe's. I like it a lot. I mean, I like anything with char.
I can taste that. Yeah, the char.
Yeah, that
My favorite pie in the city is Taconelli's white pie with crushed tomatoes on top. If I didn't tell you that, you would just think it was pizza. It's just like a chunky sauce, but it's like super heavy on the garlic, and it's so thin and cracker crust. And like, I love Taconelli's. Shout out to Taconelli's.
Shout out Taconelli's.
I think the red sauce is a little like, I don't want to say boring, but like it's like this is a special pie, and not everybody knows about it.
So it's crushed tomatoes in lieu of their normal sauce?
Yes, but it's like there's enough on it that you would just think it's like, oh, they have a chunky sauce here.
Man, what an insider tip.
Like,
I really think that we grew up in an area where we have good pizza. Pretty much like that Clifton Heights kind of area. Like there's like 6 or 7 legendary spots like within a mile or 2 radius.
Yeah.
When I moved out to Fishtown, this was like 7, 8 years ago, maybe 10. I found that like besides your really special kind of specialty pizzas, there wasn't like as much. And I moved back to Delco, and this first thing I thought was like, man, there's a good pizza on every corner.
Yeah.
Seminares, Gitanos.
Yeah, there's good pizza, then there's like destination pizza, which is
and they had a lot of that.
There's a lot of
Fishtown now. Tom.
Yeah.
You want to share your address with our listeners?
I'm in the heart of Fishtown.
There you go.
Like Central Pizza.
Just ask about them. You'll find them.
And I didn't find that like
I can think of one good. Actually, 2, like just regular traditional pizza parlor pizzas where it's not like artisan style. You don't have to jump through hoops to get it. You know, they have a phone, they answer it, they deliver, like stuff like that. One is OG Pizza, which used to be called Four Sons. That's on Frankfurt Avenue, and they have a great red pie, like red top, upside down pie. That's like one of my favorite pies.
What's the order?
What's the order?
For our listeners, like, no, when you call in, like, you say, I want this, well done.
I just get a red top, well done.
Okay.
Because it is like a softer dough, so I like a little more crisp on there. And the other is Vince's, which has been like a staple in the Northeast on the Boulevard, but they just opened on, like, right by the Fillmore. And that you can legit call it like 7:15 on a Friday night, order 2 pies, and they're like 20 minutes, and like, you just walk in.
That's like when you call Imperial around here, 10 minutes every time.
You use a credit card.
Credit card.
You know, it's like, oh, that doesn't happen in today. It's usually
that's old
like
school.
the cash only. You can only order on the Equinox and knock 4 times. Like, whatever, man. Make me a pizza.
Well, I can't wait until you go back. So, are you making it a year before you even think about it?
I think I'm going to do the year. I think my birthday is. My year will be right around 4th of July, and my birthday is July 20th, and I'm thinking like probably maybe like a birthday bust out will be the thing.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
for it because your reviews are great. Man. You know,
it should be cool.
A serious pizza man.
Where's your spots? What's a good spot in Delco these days? Gitanos isn't there anymore.
Gitanos is not there anymore.
No, it's new ownership or somebody kind of took over the recipe. But I don't think that they. I haven't gotten it in a while, but I heard that they were opening back up there at the same spot with somebody else running that recipe.
But they're not
I haven't got
open
it
yet.
since. I don't know. I haven't because
I really don't know either. I was like,
Yeah.
yep, they closed. I haven't
No,
heard
they
anything.
did. Yeah, they were. Somebody was taking it on that wasn't that original family that was there. But my go-to, if I'm getting, could be Seminaires Provolone.
Yeah, I don't think
That's
I've had
phenomenal.
that.
That's really,
beautiful.
really, really good.
Yeah, it's
I will
special.
check that out.
A wild card one that I just think is great, and it's not really on the list, is Acropolis in
I like
Lansdowne.
Greek style.
Greek
I'm
style.
assuming,
I like the Greek style.
I do as well.
Yeah.
I've been hearing 320 Market is the jam. Under the radar.
They got pizza. I thought they were like a guac and chips.
That's most people's thing. They don't know they have pizza, but apparently it's great.
Where is that?
There's one in Swarthmore. There's one in Media too.
Okay.
Also, Slack's
Yes.
Hoagie Shack.
You know the story behind
Pizza?
that.
Come on,
Great
man.
pizza.
You know the story behind that.
Great pizza.
The story
That was
behind
my
that
reaction
is that the
too.
cook was the backup at Pika's for all those years. So basically, it's a Pika's
an under
pie
the
with a
radar
little
call,
thicker
dude.
crust. But yeah, that guy that does Slack's Hoagie Shack was an original Pika's guy. There was a break, kind of like the old Lou pie and
That's so funny.
It is extremely
Pizza
close,
Villa
if not
thing,
dead
yeah.
on to Pika's.
Yeah, but a little
and
thicker.
everyone has that reaction, so there's no line.
but a little thicker. Yeah,
It's
a little thicker.
insider tip right there.
Where is the Slacks? Which one?
Right at Baltimore Pike,
Springfield.
Baltimore Pike.
by the old Stanley Cup
That's
across the
just
street.
a deep tip, man.
Yo, yeah.
You guys I think they just opened a Santucci's in Media. That kind of the upside down.
They have the upside
going
down
there.
Oh yeah, right on the corner next to
But
like,
all
the
those
CBD
places
Kratom.
can be hit or miss. You know, I hate to say it. I never talk down, but some Santucci's are better than others.
Sure.
I found.
I fancy like you're cheap. You know, you can still go to Imperial Pizza with $8 in your pocket.
Yeah.
and it's ready in 10 minutes.
Sandy Bottom.
Yeah, you know. So,
Philly, it's like a $6 slice these days.
yeah, $8.
Really?
Yeah. So, I'm partial to it, but you know, I've been raised.
Were you
I'm an
a
Irish
Pizza Hut
mother, so
guy
raised
back
on
in the
bad
day?
food.
Did you enjoy the spectacle of a
right
Friday
now,
night?
today, if we could go sit down with you three at a red top Pizza Hut with the skillet
Oh, and with the
and
lamps,
the red plastic
with the,
cups,
that you could do the lamps like the little strings hanging.
and I would love to split a Pizza Hut pizza with you, but it has to be
So
right
good,
out of
dude.
the skillet, dude.
Of course,
And
dude.
those red cups that used to
Yeah,
have
the red plastic cups.
that's
Like the way it's just like, hey y'all, like don't touch this skillet. Like,
Yeah.
like legitimately, like I don't think it's legal to do that anymore.
And I would hate myself and regret it afterwards, but like I have nostalgia for the experience of
Yeah.
like sitting in a Pizza Hut.
They'd always be dim too. The lighting was always dim there.
Dude,
Pizza Hut on Baltimore Pike in Oak there was perfect.
It was like a red carpet experience.
It was.
It was out of this world.
We went to the one in Berkeley Square a lot at Bonner. We would go down the path that might have been closed by the time you guys were there, but we would always have like cast parties and the shows. One night we would always just all go to Pizza Hut and just like some magical high school memories doing that kind of stuff.
Honor High.
But yeah, man, you can't find the red top Pizza Huts anymore.
What an experience
I don't even
done
think they're
right.
even in the Midwest.
'cause
I
now
used to
that they're
find them on tour, and I don't even think they're
now
there
they're linked with like a
anymore.
Taco Bell drive-through or something. So you're
Yeah,
not
it's
getting
all
that
just
good
express.
cooked large.
Wing Street.
Yeah, you're getting a personal pan, not like the large. But when we were kids, like that Barclay Square, the one on Baltimore Pike, that was premier.
Once it hits the box, it's a different thing. And like coming out of the skillet
Yeah,
was like that was the
Yeah,
thing.
come on, like your old school kind of like thick out of the oven.
Yes.
Nice pan.
tray.
pan,
Yeah.
the deep pan. Yeah,
Yeah, that was the best, dude.
That's
A little
amazing.
salad bar too. Creamy Italian dressing.
Yep.
I used to rock all that, man. It'd be a full course meal.
you guys are making me nostalgic for things
Yeah,
I don't want to
super
be
arousing.
nostalgic for.
All right, Tom. So I think we're gonna go find a Pizza Hut soon.
Yeah. Let's eat something tonight.
What can we So what can we plug? First and foremost, we want to make sure that people know about the Ian McGuire.
June 25th. That's the big thing coming up with Ian. Like I said, it's myself and Scotty Zwang and Ben Karp and Dave Palin are the house band, and then Tom and Clay and Ian and some other not Ian, excuse me, Eli.
We'll be there in spirit, of course.
Yeah, Eli and a bunch of other just kind of Philly local musicians. That's the big thing that I have coming up. I have a few other things on the radar. There's a new song that's going to drop from More, probably sometime in the next month or so. We've been working a lot in the studio this year. We did the festival in Mexico, and we did a show at Ardmore in February. And then most of the time we've been able to get together has been just like writing and recording. So there's about 6 songs that we've recorded at this point, and there's another 5, 6, 7 that we hope to get to, So, and then, just School of Rock. If you're in Chester County and you're looking for music lessons, pretty much 8 and up, guitar, drums, bass, keyboards, vocals. We have summer camps, and it's pretty much the coolest way to learn how to play
That's
music.
really incredible. Yeah, to have that avenue for kids.
Well, we're going to link to all of that for our listeners and those who follow us on socials. I want to thank our good friend Tom McKee for swinging by
guys.
today.
man.
It's great to see you.
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.
Appreciate being
Local
here.
legend.
All right, so we're going to be at the Ardmore Music Hall on June 25th. Scotty Zwang and Ian McGuire album release party. Scotty and myself and Dave Palin and Ben Karp are going to be playing the music from the album, and we've got a bunch of special guests like Tom Hamilton and Clay Parnell and Eli Winderman. It's going to be a great night of music in honor of our friend Ian McGuire and his memory. We miss him a lot. Rest in peace, Ian. We love you, buddy. So June 25th, if you can make it Sunday night. Thanks.